Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and it is time for my Neon Dynasty retrospective. And yes, it has already been a year since that set came out. Wow, did the last year ever fly by? And I've heard a lot of people talk about how 2022 just really seemed to fly by, didn't it? I mean, is it just a Commander thing because we got so much Commander content, and especially as a content creator, it just felt like, man, that year just flew by. I can't believe it has been already a year since Neon Dynasty has come out. So here we go, looking back at it like I like to do. I like to go back, and especially with the predictions that, you know, people like me make, the content creators saying, oh, this card's not very good, or this commander's not very good, or it's great, or whatever, and see how things actually play out. I use EDH Rec for this because that's the best online database we have for these kinds of things. There's always going to be a lot of factors that come into play here, but this is the best option we have for it. I love looking at the numbers, and Neon Dynasty in particular is kind of an important one here because, for me anyway, because I actually ranked all the commanders. There was a ton of commanders from this set, and the video I ended up doing, usually I do like a top 10 commanders from each set, but here I just thought it was a really tough one to evaluate these commanders, and so I decided to rank them all, and I ranked them all on how popular I thought that they would be. That was the first time I've ever done that, so it's going to be interesting to actually go back and look, and I've actually got my list. I wrote down the top 20 anyway from that video to see how accurate I was, because I'm curious myself. So let's take a look. And here we are on EDH Rec, and as you can see, 32 commanders. That's a lot. Plus we had the Neon Dynasty commander set as well, which had a whole bunch of commanders, which I will get to after. And of course, here we have at number 1, Ishin Two Heavens is 1, and I already talked about this at length on a couple of different videos. I talked about it in a video last year about how shocked I was how popular this commander was. It is by far the most popular commander from last year, which is saying a lot considering how many we got the most commanders ever last year, so that's saying a lot. I did overlook it a little. I had it at number 4, so I did think it was pretty good, and it's very open-ended with what you can do, but the part that I missed that is, you know, is that I didn't really miss it, but I didn't take into account that you could build around a lot of all of your opponents attacking rather than just not, you know, this is just if a creature is attacking, you know, so that's any creature causing a triggered ability of a permanent, you control the trigger. So there's a lot you can do there. A lot of really interesting things. It's already, let's check. I think it's in the top 10, isn't it? It is number 9, 9th most popular commander in the entire format already. Far and away the most popular commander from last year. I wouldn't say it's a huge surprise. It's a little bit of a surprise. I didn't think it would be that popular. Commanders like this, much like Atraxa, are always going to be popular because you're just going to have more cards come out with every set that are going to fit this theme. And there's just going to be always neat new inclusions that you can put in there. Next up, we got Satoru Umezawa. Where did I have this guy? I had this guy number 3. So pretty, I think my list is pretty accurate. I just got to say, I think I was pretty close on a lot of these. There are a few that I was way off on. I wasn't way off on Ishin. I think I was pretty close. Satoru Umezawa had it number 3. It's number 2. But of course, I included the Neon Dynasty commanders in there as well. And I actually think if you include those, this is number 3. Or maybe number 4. It's powerful. It's, again, you're not really doing the ninjutsu thing at all. You're doing the last ability. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu. That's the way you're going to build it. I don't know. I mean, we can check out. I don't know how many people are actually putting ninjas in this deck. You know, I guess there's a few, but not really. You know, I guess, yeah. I mean, stuff like, stuff that is going to affect all your ninjas certainly is going to be good. But, you know, I mean, Ornithopter's going to be the best card in that deck, right? Well, actually, probably Baleful Strix is going to be the best card, I would imagine. Yeah, there it is. Because you get to keep playing it over and over again. It's got flying and death touch. It's always going to be an unblockable creature that you can ninjutsu stuff in with. So no surprise there. Knew it would be popular. It's always tough to guess which, you know, when you have like the top 4, top 5. I mean, again, though, look at the drop off here. Like, this is incredible. 11,000. Like 6,600, that's really popular. That's a popular commander in the format, but this is almost double. Like, this is a massive drop off. Ishin is so popular. Hanada Dawn Crowned, another one I've talked about a lot on my channel. I thought, again, because of the open-endedness, the power level, That's what makes Commanders popular in the format. It is really popular. Again, 6,300 is really good, but this I had at number 2. So, and it's probably, again, if you include the Neon Dynasty Commanders, it's going to be like number 5, I think. So I definitely thought it would be more popular. I have heard people say the power level actually holds them back from playing it. I don't know. It's still a great again, this is just like Ishin, in my opinion, where the ability is so open-ended, and going forward, there's always going to be new cards in every set that are going to be great in this deck that it's going to maintain, right? Some of these commanders will maintain their popularity 2, 3, 4 years from now, and some of them not so much, right? Light Paws, Emperor's Voice, which I correctly predicted would be one of the most popular mono-white commanders. I believe it is number 2. Behind Giada. Interestingly enough, we had so many great mono-white commanders last year, and I would imagine the top 5 mono-white commanders in the entire format are all going to be from last year, probably. Maybe even if you include an Elishnorn from this year, the new Elishnorn, they're all going to be the new commanders, because they just had so many great mono-white commanders last year. Light Paws I had at number 9, so it's even more popular than I thought it would be. It's mono white, right? Nobody likes mono white, so I thought that would hinder it a little bit. I knew it would be a really popular mono white commander. Apparently it's really powerful. I have not played against a Light Paws deck yet, but apparently there's a lot of people actually complaining about the power level of it and how hard it is to deal with, because how easy it is to protect your commander. Tatsunari Toad Rider. This one I actually did on my channel. Really interesting commander. First of all, you have a Sultai commander. That's a really popular color combination in the format, so that's going to help you out there. Color combination is always going to help you out with these commanders as far as popularity goes. You also are doing the enchantment thing. You're doing the frog thing. You're doing a lot of neat little things here that, the flavor stuff also kind of helps with, or the meme value, we could say, helps out with commanders a lot of times. I think there's some other commanders here that is the case as well. So this guy is 5. I had him at number 6. So again, pretty accurate there. I made this guy originally on my channel thinking that he wouldn't be that popular, and then after I did that deck tech, I was like, you know what? I think this guy actually might be a lot more popular than I originally thought, because I usually don't go after the popular commanders when I do the deck techs from new sets. So popular one. I'm not that surprised about it. Greasefang is, I like this commander. It's a great build around. I've done 2 deck doctors on my Patreon now for Greasefang, because I had a couple patrons submit decks for it. It's a great commander for sure. There's a lot of things you can build around here. Vehicles in Orzhov colors is interesting. What are we at? Number 6 here. I had it at number 15. So it's actually way more popular than I thought it would be. I thought you are just doing vehicles at the end of the day, right? So I thought it is a little one-dimensional, even though it's doing it in a really interesting way. I thought it's just Orzhov vehicles, right? So it's not like you can go a bunch of different directions with it. Whereas like an Ishin or a Hanada or a Tatsunari, there's so many different directions you can go with it. If I sit down across from a Greasefang deck, I know they're going to be doing vehicles. There's not really anything else they can do there, right? So still, neat commander. Tameshi Reality Architect, another one I did on my channel. Again, there was a lot of really interesting things you could do there with this ability. I mean, the first ability, whenever one or more non-creature permanents are returned to hand, draw a card. That's a great ability. It applies to everything. If your opponent plays a bounce land, returns a land to their hand, you're going to get a card draw off of this, right? So you could just play this commander and just get incidental card draw all over the place from this. So that's pretty great. But obviously that last ability is what you want to build around. What did I have Tameshi at? I had Tameshi at, I think I had it quite a bit higher. I had 5. And the reason why I had it so high is because of the power level. I thought there was definitely some combo potential here. I thought there might actually be even some CEDH players going after this. Like maybe, I don't know how many CEDH players are doing Satoru Umezawa, but when you get a commander that is powerful enough, like Yuriko, for example, the reason Yuriko is one of the most popular commanders in the entire format, it's like number 3, is because a lot of casual players use it, but also it gets used in CEDH, so that makes it even more popular. And I thought Tameshi would be possibly Azorius are really good control colors. I thought maybe people would be going after this in CEDH as well. Speaking of which, Jin Kataxi I didn't think this was going to be a a CEDH commander. It's too expensive, right? It costs 7 mana. I don't know if anyone's actually doing that, but it's just such a powerful ability. And this was the one that I for sure was curious where it was going to end up. This was the one for me that I was most curious about because it is certainly powerful and you could easily go after it. There's a lot of different things you can do here. It's super open-ended because you're just copying stuff. And obviously you're hating on your opponents. Again, Elishnorn would be a very similar. It's like, okay, well, where's that going to end up? Because when you have these Praetors, because they have that hate, you're hating on what your opponents are doing, it sort of keeps people from playing it because they don't want to be hated on. They don't want to be the arch enemy when someone sees you have a Jin Kata, just like the original Praetors. That's the case, right? Which is, even though those commanders are really, really powerful, they're not super popular because people just don't want to be hated out of the game. And I guess this is right where I thought it would be. I had it at 8. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I guess including it's a little bit lower than I thought. It's a tough one. And just like the new Elishnorn would be a tough one to evaluate where it's going to end up. A lot of people calling for that card to be banned, and this was the same. A lot of people, when they saw Jin Kataxius for the first time, were like, this better get banned in the format. Because of that countering ability, it just makes it so unfun to play against. Never got banned. I don't hear anyone complaining about it. So really, after this set came out, I haven't hardly heard any word about this card at all. I haven't interacted with it not once, have not even seen it in a single game. So, is there any issues here? Again, I've heard more complaints about Light Paws than I have about Jin Kataxius. So it's kind of funny. Again, that's why I like to go back and look at these kinds of things. Who would have thought that? When this set spoiled, nobody was complaining about Light Paws. Everyone was complaining about Jin Kataxius, and some people were calling for it to get banned. And now these two guys have flipped, where I don't hear any complaints about this guy. I hear lots of complaints about Light Paws, which is interesting. Next up, we got Satsuki, the Living Lore. Where did I have this guy? I think I had this guy at 16, so quite a bit lower. I thought that doing sagas in just Selesnya colors was too limiting. I like the abilities here. They're all very interesting. It is, I guess, really the only Saga Tribal commander we have. So that, I guess, a lot more people wanted to go after it. I thought at the time, I was like, is there even enough to make a whole deck here? Clearly, people thought that there was, so people went after it. Ryu Storm's Edge is right about where I thought it would be. I thought this was a fantastic Voltron commander because it is giving you exactly what you want in a Voltron commander, which is an extra combat step. I attack with my commander, I get that trigger, I get to untap it and use it again. What else would you want from a Voltron commander? So it is a fantastic Voltron commander if you want to be doing that. I had this guy at 17. I was pretty close on this one. It is a little bit more popular than I thought it would be. Again, you have to look at the numbers as they drop off here, right? I mean, Ishin, 11,000, Ryu, 1,100. So we're 10 times the difference between these two guys, right? Big, big difference here. I would also point out, a lot of people, when I do this, will point out the precon factor, how precons tend to be more popular. Ishin's not a precon, right? None of these guys are. So the fact that this is not a precon is shocking how popular this guy is. It really, really is. But then pointing out the amount of decks, we have 1,100 here, and then we have 1,100 here. So these are essentially almost exactly the same, right? However, I will point out that I thought Kodama the Westry was good. This to me is another one of the surprises. Not a lot of big surprises here. Ishin is a little bit more popular than I thought it would be. Kodama the Westry I thought would be way more popular. And I guess maybe people just thought it was too vanilla and boring. It certainly goes in a ton of decks. This goes in the 99 of a lot of decks. And I would implore people to look at their deck because it's likely they could easily slot a Kodama the Westry in there and it was going to do a ton of stuff for you in that deck. A +1/+1 counter theme. I think any +1/+1 counter theme in Selesnya or Simic colors could easily put Kodama the Westry in there. I had this guy quite a bit higher. I had this guy at 7. I think the days of the big green decks is coming to a close. When I first started playing Commander, I played against a ton of decks. The mono green was the most popular mono color, I think. And I just did my color combinations video where I talked about this. Mono green, I think, was number 1. And then mono black was right behind. And that's because both of those decks were doing very similar things, where the mono green decks were ramp, Giant Genesis Wave, or Craterhoof Behemoth I Win. Those kinds of big plays, right? When Casual Commander was more of the battle cruiser type of Magic, and the black decks were doing something similar. I get Cabal Coffers and Urborg, tons and tons of mana, and I just do Torment of Hellfire or something similar like that, and I just win the game. Those days I think are coming to a close, and so when you see a green commander like this that is just got ramp completely built into it, I thought would be more popular, but I think people are becoming less interested in those decks. The other thing that is, again, becoming less interesting is the 5-color Good Stuff commanders, where, again, when we got one, a 5-color Good Stuff commander, which Kyodai is essentially, because you could pretty much do anything with this commander, it would absolutely skyrocket in popularity, and that's just not the case anymore because we just have so many of them. We have so many great 5-color commanders that can fit just about any theme that when you get one like Kyodai, it's like, and I had this number 14, again, I was pretty much bang on because I was like, yeah, if this would have come out 2 or 3 years ago, hugely popular. Now it's like, we got a lot of commanders like that already, so it doesn't really have, unless you're doing something specific that you want to do where you're making a permanent indestructible, there is some neat things you can do here, but just as far as, it's a 5-color commander that I could do, enchantment tribal or shrines, ironically enough, we don't need that anymore because we already have that stuff. So it's not going to be as popular for that reason. The reality chip, this one probably is the one that I was most off about from this set. And I wrote down the top 20 here, but reality chip wasn't in my top 20. It was number 26, and I purposely wrote it down because when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, that's way higher than what I thought. I thought it was 26. Over 1,000 decks, I would have never guessed that. I just thought it was too janky and too weird. Maybe the janky weirdness is what people go after. Again, the flavor, the meme value sometimes is what makes people go after a commander. It is a artifact creature. It is an equipment jellyfish. There's so many unique things going on here. The reality chip, just the name alone, is just very weird and out of the ordinary. So I think a lot of that is what people are doing here. You get to look at the top card of your library anytime. That's handy. You're in mono blue though, right? So that very much limits the things you can do. And the ability is good, but it only works if it's attached to a creature. So I'm actually surprised this one is as popular as it is. This is definitely probably the biggest surprise from the set for me. Hidetsugo Devouring Chaos. Again, I had it at number 10. It's a little bit lower than I thought it would be. I thought this is a pretty powerful ability. It is a little bit tough to use. 3 mana, you got to tap your commander. I guess maybe it's a little slower than a lot of people would like. I will point out you're in a Rakdos sacrifice theme. There's a ton of support for that. It's pretty interesting. I guess maybe not interesting enough for people to go after. Ao the Dawn Sky. Again, let's look at the decks here because now we have a huge drop off, right? This is, everything's pretty close here. We have, obviously, Ishin is in outer space compared to the rest of these. And then all of these are pretty close. Like we just have slight drops. I guess there's a pretty big drop from Tatsunari to Greasefang. Yeah, it's about double. So there is a big drop off here. And then we have what I would consider sort of the middle range decks. These guys in here are all the ones that you're just going to see from time to time. Used to be that any deck over 1,000 was going to be a popular commander that you would see all the time. That's not the case anymore. Decks that are in the 2,000 to 1,000 range are commanders that you might not see. Like for me, again, I've seen Greasefang, Tamishi, Jin. The rest of these I have never played against or even seen in a game. Again, Kadama the West Tree is one I've seen in the 99. I did a Kyodai deck for one of my patrons. I have not seen Reality Chip. And then it really trails off once you get to the 500 range. So Ao the Dawn Sky. And I have an AO deck. Haven't put together in paper yet. I really love it a lot. It's tons of fun to play. You guys can check that out if you want to. But again, we got a big drop off here where we are now cut in half to the amount of decks. But I will say, I had this guy at 18, which is, again, pretty close to bang on. And again, I was accurate in that I thought this is a cycle of dragons. I thought this would be the most popular of that cycle. And I was correct. It is the most popular of the cycle by quite a wide margin, in fact. Other than this, I was off by quite a bit. Goro definitely is more popular than I thought it would be. I just thought, I'm like, creatures you control gain haste until end turn. Just 1 red mana, give your team haste. It's a 2 mana commander. I like that. I thought it was pretty boring though. Mono red, you're just attacking. I guess you got to create a 5/5 dragon with flying, activate only if you're controlling an attacking modified creature. So there's a lot of stipulations there. It costs 5 mana. This is definitely more popular. I mean, it's not popular at all. 436 is really not that popular. And once you get down to these bottom rows, again, these are all really unpopular commanders, so the ranking doesn't really matter that much. That's why I didn't really write down anything below 20, because really it doesn't matter that much, because it just is about personal interest, which once you get down here, because once we get down to like 400, 300 decks, these are really unpopular commanders in the format that you're almost never going to see. Shigeki, again, I was like, it's kind of open-ended. This is another commander that I probably think you would see more in the 99. Nashi, Moon Sage of Scion. This is my other one that I was sort of way off on because I thought it would be a lot more popular. 323 is essentially nothing. I had this guy at number 12, so way higher. Again, people used to really like mono black. People also used to like this kind of ability where you're stealing your opponent's stuff. Maybe that has sort of, people have shied off of that because, again, people don't like having their stuff stolen. So that strategy has maybe sort of gone to the wayside. So this guy's way less popular than I thought it would be. Kur the Boundless guy is the second most popular dragon. And again, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, we can just look at all of them here. They're all pretty much around the same. This is 312. These guys, they're all pretty unpopular. The dice trigger on your commander, people don't love. And again, part of the reason why I thought AO was going to be a good one is because there is a lot of recursion in white. So having your commander die all the time isn't that hard to build around. I thought Junji was going to be the second most popular one. I actually had this at number 19. It's way lower than I thought it would be because, first of all, these abilities are both great. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. That's great. You can build around the discard theme. Put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose 2 life. I just had a patron who has this in the 99 of one of their decks, Toolbox Tori deck. And that is a fantastic ability. They ended up stealing their opponent's creature out of their graveyard. That's a great ability. And black has a ton of recursion, so I'm actually really surprised that this guy isn't more popular. I guess, again, it's like, okay, mono black recursion, boring. There's way better ways to do that. Again, this is another commander that probably fits in the 9/9 of a lot of decks. Atsushi, Kari the Swirling Sky. There's not a lot of great ways to do these commanders because they have dice triggers, although I thought Kari, the Swirling Sky, would be an interesting one. Even though it is the most expensive, it costs 6. The thing here with this that you can do, which is really, really interesting, is create token copies. That works with your commander, which I almost wanted to go after this guy because I thought that's a really interesting way to go, is I create token copies. So I cast a Cackling Counterpart, create a token copy of my commander. The legendary rule says I have to sacrifice one, so I sacrifice a token copy, so I don't have to sacrifice the original, and now I get the effect. I don't love the mill 6 cards thing. I would probably be doing the bounce thing more. I guess that's maybe a tough thing to build around as well. As I correctly predicted, AO is probably the best that you can actually build around. Love my AO deck. Some of these other guys like Risona Asari Commander. Yeah, this is just like... really the only interesting thing that I think you can do with this commander is, again, with Nesting Grounds. And maybe because of that counter stuff that we got from Phyrexia Obi 1, this might be a commander to give another look at, because you can keep moving. Like with Nesting Grounds, you can move the indestructible counter onto something else, then get another one and repeat the process. Unfortunately, getting your Nesting Grounds in Boros Colors isn't that easy. Narika, yeah, not a big surprise there. You're just doing Enchantment Tribal essentially in mono white. Not really that great. And Heiko, of course, Artifact Tribal and mono red. Both of these are commanders that are probably way better in the 99. And then we get down to the ones that are essentially, like, I'm surprised they have any decks at all. Once you get under 100 decks, it's like, yeah, you're just never going to see these commanders. Naomi, I'm pretty sure this is exactly what I said. I think I had the Goshintes right at the bottom. Yeah, I had all the Goshintes right at the bottom because the whole amount of shrines you control just doesn't, it's almost impossible to build around. And then Katose, you're doing the name of a card thing, which is impossible to build around practically. And then this abilities like this, I'm pretty sure my bottom looked exactly like this because it's just so difficult. These guys are just super difficult to build around, and Naomi just has a really not great ability. All right, let's look at the most popular cards from the set before we get to the Neon Dynasty Commander cards. And it was pretty hard to be wrong about this. I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard, saying that the land cycle here, the channel land cycle, as well as Farewell, were going to be the most popular cards in the format, was just a no-brainer. It was pretty hard to. I don't know who got that wrong. Like, I had put the channel lands at number 1 and Farewell was number 2. Obviously, Farewell was going to be the most popular board wipe. I think it's the most popular board wipe. It might not quite yet be the most popular board wipe in the format, but eventually it will be, unless they come out with a better one. I don't know how you could do better than this. You know, I love Austere Command. It holds a special place in my heart, but I do think Farewell, just because of the exile. I mean, it's so hard to get around that. Just because of that, is probably the best board wipe in the format now. And all those modes, it even has Graveyard Hate. So good. But the channel lands, obviously, Boseiju being far and away the best one. I'm actually surprised how close Adawaro is. Again, it's also removal. Having removal on a land. Adawaro is essentially removal because it's bouncing something. In a pinch, you just got to deal with that artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker your opponents have. It can do so. Here comes that Blightsteel Colossus. I can channel it from my hand. They can't even counter it because it's an ability unless they have a stifle effect. But yeah, Boseiju, far and away. It's funny how people thought Sokenzin is better than I was like, no, Iganju, that's great. In fact, I think Iganju for me is probably number 3. I would probably even put it ahead of Takenuma. I think it's great. I have it in all my white decks. Again, it's removal. It's a fantastic gotcha moment to channel this out and kill your opponent's attacking or blocking creature. I've used it a few times. It's great. So not a lot of surprises here. The big surprise for me is Secluded Courtyard, which I don't even know what it does. I've never seen this card before. I mean, I've seen it, but I don't even know what it does. And it's it's even more popular than Sokenzin. So what does it do? Enters the battlefield, choose a creature. Oh, okay. It is a tribal. Add 1 mana of any color. Okay, so it's a Cavern of Souls without the counter ability thing. It's a add 1 mana of any. Okay, so I get that. Yeah, this is not a card that is worth mentioning on any top lists, but it certainly is a card that is going to get used just for any tribe where you need a little bit of help. I mean, it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, eh? Yeah, it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped. So yeah, I guess there's not really a whole lot of reason not to play this if you're playing that, any tribe theme. So that would make sense. Yeah. But other than that, everything is like Tamiyo Safekeeping. Love it. Again, just like with Blacksmith Skill, I put it in as many decks as I can. Wow, the reality chip is in a lot of the 99 decks. That's wow. People really like that card, eh? More popular as a commander and more popular than 99 than I thought it would be. Everybody loves Lion Sash as a Graveyard Hate card. Can't complain about that. Got to have the Graveyard Hate. Again, we have so many commanders in the 99 here. Hey, Jin Kataxius, Atsushi, Godama the West Tree, as I correctly predicted. Junji, as I correctly predicted. Just great cards in the 99. And then March of the Swirling Mists. Phenomenal card. I can't remember where I had this on my best cards from the list, but it certainly was there. Again, of this cycle, they did a cycle of these. This was far and away the best for me. I love phasing. It is the best way. Protects against that Farewell, right? That's one of the only ways you can do it. So obviously a fantastic card. All right, let's take a look at Neon Dynasty Commander. All right, and here we are. And again, I have my ranking. Go Shinte of Life's Origin, I had at number 1 from the entire set, right? So combining the regular Neon Dynasty with Neon Dynasty Commander, I had it at number 1. And the reason I had it at number 1 was a combination of reasons, because there was a ton of people out there already doing Shrine Tribal, 5-color Shrine Tribal, and using other commanders, obviously other 5-color commanders, as their commander for that deck. And you're just going to slot this in as your commander, obviously, right? But also, I thought it was a great fit for just 5-color enchantment tribal, which I imagine a lot of people did as well. Anyone playing some sort of 5-color enchantment tribal of any kind are going to use this as their commander, because you can return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield, right? And your commander is an enchantment as well. So I knew this would be really popular. Again, we might be getting into a situation where the 5-color good stuff commanders, we're getting a little bit of a fatigue there because we have so many. We just had another 5-color commander from the last set. They seem to be coming out with 5-color commanders in every set now. They really need to back down on that. I don't love it myself. The biggest surprise for sure from this whole entire set combined with Shorakai, which is like 97, again, almost as popular as Go Shinte. So this is number 3 behind Ishin and Go Shinte. I had this at 13. So I still had it pretty high. I thought it was great. I thought just that ability, again, forget the vehicle thing. And I would imagine that's what a lot of people are doing if they're not doing the vehicle thing at all. I will point out, though, this was the pre-con. I believe Shirokai and Chishiro were the pre-cons, so they are going to be a lot more popular than they probably normally would if they were just printed in the normal set. If Shirokai was just printed in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, rather than the Neon Dynasty Commander, how many decks would it actually have? Probably not this many. That being said, let's check out the top commanders in the entire format here. Again, we have Isshin. So from last year, from this set and from last year, Isshin is the most popular, right? And then we're going down the list here, and Miram, again, another shocker for me, would be the second most popular commander from last year, right? So this is obviously from Baldur's Gate. From all of last year, Miram is the second most popular commander. Goshinte is number 3 from all of last year, and obviously number 2 from the set. And then I gotta imagine Shirokai is not far behind. So yeah, Goshinte is number 16 and Shirokai is number 19. By far the number 1 Azorius commander now as well. Really, really popular commander. And again, look at the drop off here. This is a massive drop off, more than double, almost 3 times. Like this is a 6,300 drop off here, 6,300 decks. Like 6,300 decks is a massively popular commander, right? If you look at those guys that we looked at, you know, like Satoru Omizawa, that was like that many decks. That's the difference between these two. And again, both precons. So huge difference here between this precon and this precon. Massive difference. Jishiro's still, you know, it's interesting. I would have to, and I'm going to have to put on the screen because I'm combining these two, what the actual ranking is combining. Because again, I had Chishiro at 11, which is probably, it's number 3 here. But if you look over here, like 3,400 would put it, yeah, that's still probably, I'm pretty close. And then another huge drop off. Again, we were cutting in more than half, going down to Kotori, Pilot Prodigy, which again, I didn't even have on my top 20. It's just vehicle tribal. Azorius a vehicle tribal. And obviously Shirokai is just so much better if you're going to be doing that. Kosai Pentadent Warlord, which I just talked about on my Wrong Cards video. Do not put Sword of Feast and Famine in that deck. Really interesting commander. Again, the mono green, which limits you a lot on what you're doing, but very interesting for sure. I thought for sure the most interesting part here is it's dealing that much damage to each opponent, which is something you just never see in a mono green commander. That part of I thought was for sure unique. And obviously the fact that you want it equipped, enchanted, and counters on it, very unique. 1100 is about where I thought it would be. I had it at number 20. This is my number 20, Kosei. Kami, the Fractured Calm, which I believe was in the precon, right? This was in the Chishiro precon. This is another one I did on my channel because I come up with some really interesting things here. Check that one out if you're interested. You know, this one to me, it was a lot more interesting than Chishiro, where you just want to be equipping your stuff. Here, you're goading each creature, although I'm getting a little tired of the goading thing, especially now because we've gotten a whole bunch more. And then another massive drop-off. Like, we're going from Kosai to Kami to Katsumasa, and it's 1,100 down to 200. And not surprising here, I didn't think this guy would be popular at all. And then, of course, we have the Myojins, which I thought it was interesting. The fact that they switched to the indestructible counter was interesting, but everyone was just baffled with the fact that they did the if you cast it from your hand thing. Because, of course, the original Myojin had it. So maybe they just did it for flavor reasons, but this is in a commander set. Like, come on, guys. I understand that you're doing this for the flavor of the original ones, but these are actual cards in a commander set. Why would you say cast it from hand? That was a very weird decision that they did that. So, of course, just incredibly unpopular. Just commanders that you're never, ever going to see. By the way, I'll just throw out there my Denry Klin deck that I did in my Underwhelming Commander series. I put these guys in there. I put Myojin of Cryptic Dreams and Myojin of Blooming Dawn because you can sort of manipulate the indestructible counters and use these abilities over and over again. I'm pretty sure I correctly put Myojin of Towering Might at the very bottom. All right, let's look at I think I had Ruthless Technomancer as the only card from the actual Neon Dynasty commander that, maybe Drum Bellower? I can't remember if I mentioned that one or not. Certainly Drum Bellower goes in a ton of decks because it just untapped. It's a Seedborn Muse, sort of. So it just fits in a lot of decks. Just untapping all your creatures during each other player's turn. I've put this in a couple of decks recently. I put this in one for myself, which I will be talking about on my channel probably soon. Also, my again, a deck doctor video for a patron had this in his deck. Works in a lot of decks, certainly. I think Ruthless Technomancer works in a lot more decks. I think this is a fantastic card. I had it in my top cards from the entire year last year. So I'm actually surprised it's not the most popular card from the set because it fits the sacrifice theme, the recursion theme, the treasure token theme, sacrificing artifacts. It fits a ton of different themes. So I'm actually surprised it's not in more decks. 18,000 is not that many. Cyberdrive Awakener. Wow, eh? I mean, it's pretty powerful. If you're in an artifact theme, this is a great way to close out the game. I've actually seen this card used in Legacy. So that says a lot. For a 6 mana card to be used in Legacy, that must say it's got a powerful effect, and it certainly does, right? When it enters the battlefield until end of turn, each non-creature artifact you control. So you turn all those treasure tokens into 4/4 flyers. Great way to close out the game, right? So it does fit in a lot of decks. Organic Extinction, okay. Yeah, I'll destroy all non-artifact creatures. This card certainly, like when this card came out, I was like, that's pretty specific. I don't know if it goes in a ton of decks, but as it would happen, we got a ton of artifact creature tribal. Like this card's become a lot better since it came out. We got a ton of artifact creature tribal in Warhammer 40k, certainly in Brothers War. A lot of artifact tribal stuff there. So this card's going to go in a bunch of those decks. And then we got some more stuff from Phyrexia All Will Be One. Sort of I wouldn't say a heavy artifact creature tribal theme, but there definitely was some. So this card's gotten a lot better for sure. So I don't know how much this number has jumped up in the last couple of months, but I'm sure it has been a bunch. Imposter Mech, that's an interesting card. You may have Imposter Mech enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except it's a vehicle artifact with crew 3 and loses all other card types. So there's a lot of neat things you can do there. It's a neat card for sure. Silk Guard, Swift Reconfiguration is one that I'm surprised sees a lot of play. Again, this is a card that I've seen in deck doctors for my patrons, and I'm like, yeah, it's a good way to lock out your, like, Darksteel Mutation. Isn't that doing the same thing? And that card's been around forever, and maybe is even a better way to lock out your opponent's creatures. And there's just so much great removal in white. I don't know if I would ever try to find room for this. Like, there is some specific things you can do here. Other than just I lock out my opponent's commander, what would you be using it for? Enchanted Permanent is a vehicle. Like, your opponent can still use it, right? Artifact and loses all other card types. So all they have to do is crew their, if you put this on your opponent's commander to try to lock it out, they can just crew it. And then, I mean, crew 5 is a lot, but still, they can still turn it on. So I don't know if it's a great removal option. I'm surprised it sees as much play as it does. Kappa Cannoneer, yeah, pretty good. Obviously great in, again, those artifact tribal decks. I mean, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield in your control, put a counter on your Kappa Cannoneer. That's definitely an easy thing to do. And it can't be blocked, of course. Aerial Surveyor, this might be a pre-con thing. I don't think this is great. When it attacks, if defending player controls more lands than you, search your library for a basic plains card. Put it on the battlefield. Like, you have to crew it. Yeah, it's pretty slow. Just way better ramp options in mono white. So I think this is probably a lot more popular than it should be because it was in the pre-con. Probably a lot of these cards are a lot more popular than they should be because they were in the pre-con and people just haven't taken them out. For me, it's like Swift Reconfiguration, not great. There's way better white removal options, and Aerial Surveyor, way better white ramp options. So if you're using these in the pre-con, take them out maybe and replace them with other options. All right, that's it. That is all. Taking a look back at Neon Dynasty and Neon Dynasty Commander after a year. Again, I can't believe it's been a year already. Interesting to look at these, I think. I like looking back at these sets and seeing how everything sort of played out, especially with the amount of cards we got last year. Like, how much is all the stuff that came after Neon Dynasty last year, and there was a ton. How much did it impact it? It didn't impact the commanders much because we had some really, really popular commanders from this set. I think we had 3 commanders from this set that are in the top 20 in the entire format. That is really impressive for this set. So this overall, I think this set really did have quite the impact on the commander format. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. What were the biggest surprises for you from this set as far as the commanders or just the 99 cards? I'm interested to hear your opinions, but that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.